A young boy was suspended from school for 45 days for bringing a Nerf gun to that school. But that, my friends, is not the full story. You see, when he was finally allowed to return, his classmates harassed him, threatened to beat him up, told him to hurt himself, and called him a school shooter multiple times because of that Nerf gun. And when the parents tried to address it, the school told them that it wasn't considered bullying. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel with another example as to why I will never live in New Jersey and why I will do everything within my power to homeschool. Because in this story, not only was a kid suspended for a ridiculously long time over a dumb kid's toy, but he was harassed, bullied, and basically told to commit suicide, and the school suggested it wasn't bullying because he had somehow chosen it. You can't make this stuff up. This story started back in the 2021 to 2022 school year in the Bridgewater School District in Jersey. For whatever reason, a 6th grade boy brought a Nerf gun to school. Definitely not the best choice considering all the stories that we hear about schools' zero tolerance policies, including an incident, again, in Jersey just a few years earlier where a 5th grader was suspended for having a Nerf dart that the school treated as an actual bullet. There was also a huge issue in 2020, also in New Jersey, that I covered on this channel when a kid had the police show up at his house because he had a blue and orange Nerf gun in his hands at the start of a Zoom class and the teacher considered it a real weapon. Needless to say, not the best choice, but kids, especially boys, playing with Nerf guns isn't exactly a revelation. Now, this kiddo was suspended for 45 days for a code of conduct violation. That was bad enough. He wasn't allowed to return until the next school year as a 7th grader. He showed back up at school and suddenly the other kids started ganging up on him and, according to court documents, called him a school shooter multiple times, threatened to beat him up, called him a loser, a piece of garbage, and even encouraged him to hurt himself. Oddly enough, all behaviors that we often hear about as motivations for school violence in an environment that claims to be anti-bullying. So anti-bullying, in fact, that the Code of Conduct webpage on the school district's website is just splashed with all kinds of anti-bullying credentials and phone numbers and people that you can contact. The mom even reported it to the school, who told her that it's not bullying. But before I tell you their reasoning and how a judge even upheld that reasoning, here is a word about today's sponsor. We will all have to retire someday. The dollar is not what it used to be, and you cannot rely on things like Social Security, which is already running on a deficit and will be dead by the time I'm old enough to collect it. So my family focuses on investments and diversifying those investments, including precious metals, so that I don't have to rely on selling ammo for groceries when I'm 80. Because precious metals always hold value, and as the dollar falls, metals go up. That is why I have partnered with American Hartford Gold for this video. American Hartford Gold has amazing customer service, a buyback commitment, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and can show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your wealth with physical gold and silver. They have all kinds of options from gold, silver, and platinum to coins and bars to even investing it in an IRA if that's more your jam. And unlike dollars in a bank account, it can't get wiped out by the banks and no one but you knows exactly how much you have. So click the link in the description, text DOLL, that's DOLL, to 65532 or call the number on your screen and tell them I sent you, and they'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order so that you can start saving today. So the mom goes and reports this to the school, and the school looks at everything going on, and they determine that the behaviors don't fall under the state's definition of bullying, and so that these kids could only be disciplined under the Code of Conduct. Now, a gander over at the Code of Conduct shows the closest things are a run-up between disruptive behavior / disrespect / inappropriate language or harassment, though not the state definition of it apparently, both of which garner the offender 1 to 3 detentions or a 1 to 2 day in-school suspension depending on the seriousness of the offense. These kids threatened actual violence, and by that chart, got a slap on the wrist while the kid with a toy was kicked out of school for 45 days. The school is calling it simple name-calling because the boy's act of bringing a Nerf gun to school was not a distinguishing characteristic as required by state law. Yes, threatening to beat a kid up and telling him to kill himself is just good old name-calling. As a parent, I would be pissed. And the mother was so pissed that she took it up with the state as a whole, which did not go in her favor, because an administrative law judge named Kim Bellin agreed with this school because she said the state's bullying definitions required the name-calling to be based on gender or race or religion and not, quote, because of his choices. Yeah, we're talking about a 10 or 11-year-old boy here. Now, this is what state law around anti-bullying policies and their definitions actually says. Harassment, intimidation, or bullying means any gesture, any written, verbal, or physical act, or any electronic communication, whether it be a single incident or a series of incidents, that is reasonably perceived as being motivated either by any actual or perceived characteristic, such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or a mental, physical, or sensory disability, or by any other distinguishing characteristic that substantially disrupts or interferes with the orderly operation of the school or the rights of other students, and that A reasonable person should know, under the circumstances, will have the effect of physically or emotionally harming a student or damaging the student's property or placing a student in reasonable fear of physical or emotional harm to his person or damage to his property. B has the effect of insulting or demeaning any student or group of students. Or C, creates a hostile educational environment for the student by interfering with a student's education or by severely or pervasively causing physical or emotional harm to the student. I'd say that by these definitions, the behaviors definitely meet criteria A, B, and C. As for the distinguishing characteristic, the definition clearly says any actual or perceived characteristic, with things like race or religion being listed as possible examples and are not an exhaustive list of requirements. Any actual or perceived characteristic is extremely subjective. It comes down to who is perceiving the alleged characteristic and who can then mold it to their agenda. At the very least, the fact that the kid was separated from his peers and it was apparently broadcasted why, to the point that he is getting bullied for it the next school year, is a distinguishing characteristic. And at the very least, these behaviors fit the bullying definition with good old Merriam-Webster. It's also of note that this judge used to work at a law firm owned and operated by a very anti-gun former governor, Jim Florio. So there might be a little bit of bias there. The parents have the option of appealing to a higher court, and I honestly hope they do. Should the kid have brought the Nerf gun to school? No. But that doesn't negate his rights to go to school without getting threatened and targeted under a school administration that does nothing just because they don't like that a toy gun was involved. If this was an adult, the institution and administration would be facing lawsuits up the wazoo, but because it's a kid, for some reason, adults think that children don't have rights. And that, my friends, is another reason why to hate the public school system. And on that note, that is it for this video. Please do all of the algorithm things to like, share, and subscribe if you are new here, and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment if you would. The holiday weekend, I don't know, something went on and YouTube messed with their algorithms again, so things were a hot mess. So you do the things. I will keep making the videos. And as always, guys, thank you for tuning in, and happy shooting.